The Chinese President Xi Jinping is on a final leg of his Southeast Asia tour as he's scheduled to arrive in Cambodia later today. Officials say his visit will reaffirm Beijing's commitment to further enhancing bilateral ties and cooperation in all areas such as trade and investment.
The trip will also seek to enhance mutual political trust at a time of increasing tensions over American tariffs. Mr. Xi has urged Asian nations to unite against confrontation and unilateralism amid China's escalating trade war with the United States. Earlier, he was in Vietnam and Malaysia, where he hailed a new golden age in relations.
For more, we are joined by Harrison Cheng. He's a director of control risks. Harrison, thank you very much for joining us. First, let's start with what came out of Mr. Xi's Malaysia trip. More than 30 agreements signed between China and Malaysia, and Prime Minister Anwar stating that his country stands with the Chinese government. How do you read Malaysia's current positioning now? Is it an early sign of tilt toward Beijing?
Well, I think for Anwar, this so-called slightly stronger alignment with China was quite clear already from the time he took power in late 2022. He has always described China as a friend, and he has spoken up against what he deems as US trying to put everything in terms of a zero-sum game. So I think this is consistent with what Anwar has positioned before, and it's not something new. But he did describe Xi as a true friend during the meeting with him. And I think it was really meant intentionally as a way to describe how China is indeed succeeding in its role as a reliable partner compared with, obviously, the volatility that we see in the US situation right now.
Harrison, the leaders have spoken, all three, and there have been lots of broad agreements and MOUs signed. I wonder if you have a sense of how businesses and ordinary Malaysians and Vietnamese alike are reacting to Xi's message to resist what he calls US bullying. I mean, is Beijing being viewed as a potential savior here, or do they feel caught between two, bickering superpowers?
I think it's quite clear that the statements being issued by ASEAN members, including the three that Xi is visiting or has visited, are quite measured. They don't want to obviously antagonize the US because all of them have shown that initiative and the inclination to pursue negotiations over what the eventual tariffs will be imposed following the Trump's reversal on 9th of April. At the same time, they do want to show the US that they have options, right? They have friends in the region who can help them, albeit not immediately. For some of these countries, for Vietnam, for Thailand, for Cambodia especially, the reliance on the US as an export destination is significantly higher than even for China or Japan or the EU. And so these nations will continue to have to play that very difficult game of trying to keep it a balanced position.
Well, Harrison, lots of questions right now about ASEAN unity. As chair, Prime Minister Anwar has promised to make sure, there is unity. But we know as Xi visits the region, the Philippines preparing for joint military exercises, with the US, Manila calling it a defense rehearsal amid tensions with China. So are you confident that ASEAN unity can indeed hold?
I think a lot of it has to do with what Malaysia aspires to do as ASEAN chair. And we have seen that, Prime Minister Anwar wants to sort of shift the debate away from a US-China only kind of zero-sum game towards a more multilateral world order. And, you see in the way he has courted the BRICS grouping, the way he has appealed to the Gulf Cooperation Council as well, seeking to build this kind of inter-regional trade blocs. Not necessarily as a rival to trade relations with the US, but really as complementary options that they can rely on. I think
Please go ahead.
Yep, sorry.
Apologies, please.
I think you're right that the security kind of issues that China has with the various claimant states in the South China Sea will continue to be sort of a key sticking point. And that's why the ASEAN member states are also being quite careful in how they approach these negotiations with China.
Okay, so with Xi Jinping's high-profile Southeast Asia tour and also reassuring this region that China is a better partner than Trump, I mean, how much real leverage is Beijing gaining through these economic and diplomatic overtures against the U.S.?
I think it would vary from country to country. Among the three countries that that's on his list right now, Cambodia is probably the most obvious one where I think China does have some kind of leverage. They are funding quite a number of large infrastructure projects, including the very ambitious Funan Teco Canal that will help Cambodia reduce reliance on Vietnamese ports for its exports to the world. For Malaysia and for Vietnam, I think it's a much more complicated picture. Because of how close they are to the U.S. In various channels, and I think especially for Malaysia, since Xi has just concluded his visit there, Anwar does want to attract the kind of tech investments from the U.S. At the same time, he wants to capitalize on the sort of supply chain relocation dynamics that are coming from the trade war between the U.S. and China, and so he is trying to ensure that he can keep all his options on the table at this point.
All right, Harrison, we'll have to leave it there. Good talking to you this morning. Harrison Cheng is Director of Control Risks.